The circus is supposed to be a place of laughter and wonder, but what happens when the fun turns into pure horror? Some performances ended in ways no one could have imagined, leaving behind terror, tragedy, and questions that still haunt us today. Karl Wallenda's final walk. Karl Wallenda faced a heartbreaking moment on June 15, 1978. At 73 years old, he attempted a daring tightrope walk between two buildings of the 10-story Condado Plaza Hotel in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Thousands of people watched from below, while many more saw it live on TV. Holding a long balancing pole, he carefully stepped forward, relying on a lifetime of experience. But then, disaster struck. A sudden strong gust of wind shook the rope, and Karl struggled to regain his balance. For a few agonizing moments, he swayed, fighting to stay on the wire. But fate was cruel. He lost control and fell 100 feet to his death. Despite this tragedy, the Wallenda name did not fade. His family carried on his fearless legacy, continuing to perform breathtaking high-wire acts. Decades later, Karl's great-grandson honored him by successfully walking the same tightrope in San Juan, proving that the Wallenda's spirit of bravery and determination would live on. The Flying Wallenda's fatal fall. The crowd held its breath as the Flying Wallendas, the legendary acrobatic family, prepared for their most dangerous stunt yet. 7 performers carefully climbed into a 3-level human pyramid, balancing on a tightrope 40 feet in the air, without a safety net. Among them was Richard Fawn, a newcomer who had just married into the famous family. The Wallendas had amazed audiences for generations, with their fearless leader, Karl Wallenda, even walking across Tallulah Gorge on a tightrope. Years later, his grandson, Nick Wallenda, would go even further, setting world records for high-wire stunts, including a daring walk across Niagara Falls. But on this fateful night in Detroit, the family's greatest risk turned into tragedy. As the pyramid reached its final position, disaster struck. One acrobat lost balance, and in seconds, the entire formation collapsed. Karl, Herman, and Gunther Wallenda managed to grab the wire, but Dieter Schepp, Mario Wallenda, and Richard Fawn fell to the ground. Jana Schepp, who was at the very top, also plunged, until Karl, in a superhuman act of strength, caught her wrist and held on for 25 minutes while rescuers rushed to help. When he finally let go, she miraculously survived with only minor injuries. Mario, however, suffered a skull fracture that left him paralyzed, and both Dieter and Richard tragically lost their lives. A safety net could have saved them, but the Wallendas remained true to their fearless legacy. The very next night, Herman and Gunther Wallenda returned to the high wire, performing in honor of their fallen family. Close call on the Wheel of Death. The crowd held their breath as Colombian acrobat Novis Heroi stepped onto the Wheel of Death in May 2018. This dangerous stunt involved running inside a giant spinning wheel, suspended high above the ground. He had done it many times before, but this time disaster struck. As he ran toward the center, he lost his rhythm and slipped. In an instant, he was flung into the air and crashed to the ground from nearly 30 feet up. The audience gasped in shock, fearing the worst. But against all odds, Heroi survived with only minor bruises. The fall should have been fatal, yet he walked away, leaving everyone stunned. His miraculous escape was a chilling reminder of the dangers circus performers face. No matter how skilled they are, one small mistake can mean life or death. Heroi's close call proved just how risky these breathtaking stunts really are. The deadly pyramid collapse. In 2017, the Wallenda family pushed their limits once again with an even riskier stunt. This time, 8 acrobats balanced nearly 30 feet above the ground without safety nets. But during a rehearsal, disaster struck. The pyramid collapsed, sending 5 performers crashing to the floor. Liana Wenda suffered horrifying injuries: a ruptured liver, fractured ribs, a broken shoulder, shattered heels, and severe facial damage. It took multiple surgeries to rebuild her face, but against all odds, she survived. Even more shocking, she later returned to the high wire, proving her fearless spirit. But her near-fatal accident raised a serious question. Should performers use safety gear? Would adding nets take away the thrill that makes these stunts so exciting? Despite the risks, the Wenda family refuses to change. Their commitment to their art is stronger than fear, and they continue walking the thin line between life and death, all for the thrill of the crowd. Tragedy at Cirque du Soleil. The magic of Cirque du Soleil turned into a nightmare on June 29, 2013. During a live show in Las Vegas, French acrobat Sarah Guillard-Guillot was performing a high-flying stunt, soaring 90 feet above the stage. But in a heartbreaking moment, her harness failed, sending her plunging into a hidden pit below. The audience couldn't see the fall, but they heard her chilling scream echo through the theater. Other performers, still suspended in the air, could only watch in horror, unable to help. Sarah was rushed to the hospital, but despite efforts to save her, she didn't survive. This was the first fatal accident in Cirque du Soleil's 30-year history, sending shockwaves through the circus world. Investigators later found that her harness had torn against a sharp edge on the platform, causing the tragic fall. The incident was a harsh reminder of the dangers acrobats face, even in the most carefully planned performances. In response, Cirque du Soleil strengthened its safety protocols, ensuring that no performer would face the same fate again. The human chandelier disaster. The crowd gasped in excitement as 8 acrobats performed a breathtaking stunt, hanging high above the audience by their hair in a dazzling chandelier formation. Nearly 4,000 people in Rhode Island watched in awe on May 4, 2014, as the performers defied gravity. But in a terrifying moment, the structure holding them up suddenly failed. The entire group plunged 20 feet to the ground. At first, the audience thought it was part of the act, but when the dust settled, the truth became clear. Something had gone terribly wrong. A steel clamp had snapped under the weight, sending all 8 women crashing down with severe injuries, including spinal damage, fractures, and internal trauma. A fellow performer standing beneath them was also badly hurt. The shocking accident left the audience shaken, and a support hotline was set up for those traumatized by what they had witnessed. This tragedy sparked serious concerns about safety in live performances, proving that better inspections and stronger safety measures are needed to prevent such horrific accidents in the future. Bear attack at Chapeau Circus. The crowd at Chapeau Circus was thrilled as a massive bear walked around the arena, pushing a wheelbarrow like a human. Children laughed and spectators clapped, amazed by the performance. But then, something went terribly wrong. The bear, tired of following commands, suddenly snapped and attacked its trainer right in front of the audience. At first, people thought it was part of the show, but the situation quickly turned serious. Shockingly, there was no protective net, and the front rows were dangerously close to the ring. Panic spread as another trainer rushed in and kicked the bear to free his colleague. Only then did the audience realize the real danger. Parents grabbed their children and rushed to safety as chaos erupted. Finally, a stun gun was used to subdue the bear, and the injured trainer managed to escape with minor wounds. But the terrifying attack raised serious concerns about safety in animal performances. Many countries have already banned such acts, and this incident added fuel to the ongoing debate. It was a harsh reminder that wild animals, no matter how well trained, can still be unpredictable and dangerous. Lions on the loose. The crowd never expected the real show to be this terrifying. In April 2023, a circus in China turned into pure chaos when 2 lions discovered that their enclosure gate wasn't fully locked. Seizing the moment, they pushed it open and escaped, right into the audience. Panic erupted as people screamed and rushed to grab their children, desperate to get away from the powerful predators. One lion was quickly caught by circus staff, but the second made it all the way to the parking lot, sending fear through the entire area. It took authorities some time to finally capture the roaming beast, but by then, the damage was done. No one would forget this horrifying moment. This shocking escape raised serious questions about using wild animals in circuses. Critics argued that keeping such creatures in stressful environments is not only cruel, but also extremely dangerous for both the animals and the audience. Many questioned if stricter safety measures should be in place or if wild animal performances should be banned entirely. After all, this incident was a chilling reminder that no matter how well trained or contained they seem, wild animals are unpredictable. And when things go wrong, the results can be terrifying. The man who blamed a nightmare. In 1959, a man named Robert Dale Segee confessed to starting a massive fire at a circus. He claimed a terrifying nightmare haunted him. A Native American on a burning horse commanded him to set the blaze. But people doubted his story. He had health issues, and there was no solid proof. His confession wasn't enough, so instead of blaming him, the court focused on negligence. 5 circus officials were found guilty for not having proper safety measures, which made the fire even deadlier. But in a shocking twist, their convictions were later overturned, and they were pardoned. Many were outraged, believing justice had not been served. Even after the tragedy, the circus kept running like nothing had happened. This raised serious concerns. Was making money more important than keeping people safe? Some argued that the industry cared more about profits than protecting lives. The horrifying fire became a harsh lesson, proving that safety rules and accountability should never be ignored in live entertainment. The Hartford Circus Fire. A fun day at the circus turned into pure horror on July 6, 1944, in Hartford, Connecticut. Over 7,000 excited people packed into a huge tent ready to watch the show. But suddenly, a fire broke out, and within seconds, flames spread across the tent. The waterproofing chemicals on the canvas made the fire even worse, turning the entire place into a death trap. Panic took over as people ran for their lives, trampling over each other. Some were blocked by animal cages near the exits with no way to escape. In the chaos, at least 167 people lost their lives, many of them children. Years later, a man named Robert Dale Segee confessed to starting the fire, but he later took back his statement, leaving the truth unknown. Despite many investigations, no one could say for sure what caused the fire. The tragedy changed circus history forever and led to new safety laws to prevent such disasters. Even today, the Hartford Circus Fire remains one of the darkest moments in entertainment history. The first Siamese twins, Chang and Ong, were born in 1811 in what is now Thailand, connected at the chest by a band of flesh. As teenagers, they left their home to perform in public, showing their rare condition to the world. In 1829, they had their first big show, where an American showman saw them and knew they would be a sensation. Soon, they were traveling across Europe and the United States, performing for kings, doctors, and huge crowds. People were so fascinated by them that by the 1830s, the term Siamese twins was created to describe conjoined siblings, a name that stuck for generations. But their story wasn't just about fame. Chang and Ong eventually settled in North Carolina, where they became wealthy plantation owners and even enslaved people. They each married a sister and had many children, building a life that was both extraordinary and controversial. While they are remembered for their unique bond, their involvement in slavery adds a darker side to their legacy. Today, their story still raises questions about identity, disability, and how history remembers people who were both admired and criticized. The Girl Who Walked Like a Camel. Ella Harper was born in 1870 in Hendersonville, Tennessee, with a rare condition that made her knees bend backward. This made it easier for her to walk on all fours, rather than stand upright. Because of this, circus owners saw her as a perfect attraction. A showman named W. Harris offered her a huge paycheck, $200 a week, which would be around $5,000 today. But fame came at a cost. She was forced to perform in humiliating conditions, often standing next to a camel while audiences gawked at their similarities. After just 1 year, Ella had enough. She left the circus, possibly to get an education, and returned home. But life didn't get easier. Her father died in a house fire, and a few years later, she lost her brother Willie. These tragedies left her heartbroken. Though she had once been famous, she spent the rest of her life in quiet sorrow, far from the public eye. Schlitzie, the beloved sideshow star. Schlitzie was born in 1901 with a rare condition that made his skull and brain much smaller than normal. Despite this, he became one of the most famous sideshow performers of the early 1900s. With his childlike innocence and joyful personality, he won the hearts of audiences everywhere. His unique look made him a spectacle. But people loved him not just for that. His charm and playful nature made him unforgettable. Schlitzie performed in some of the biggest circuses of his time, but his most famous moment came in the 1932 film Freaks. Though the movie was a failure at first, it later became a cult classic, turning Schlitzie into an icon. But his life wasn't always easy. After his caretaker, George Surtees, passed away, Schlitzie struggled without proper care. He faced many hardships, yet he never lost his love for performing. Friends eventually took him in, and he continued to appear in smaller shows, staying in the spotlight until his death in 1971. Despite his challenges, Schlitzie left behind a lasting legacy as one of the most beloved and unforgettable figures in sideshow history. The girl who became a circus star. Priscilla Lother was born in 1937 with a rare condition called hypertrichosis, which made hair grow all over her face and body. At first, her family searched for medical answers, but they struggled with money. That's when they realized that showcasing Priscilla's unique appearance could help them earn a living. Her father, who had trouble finding work due to language barriers, teamed up with a showman named Carl Lur. He helped Priscilla become a well-known performer. The public gave her the nickname Monkey Girl as an insult, but instead of being ashamed, she embraced it. To make her act even more exciting, she was paired with a trained monkey named Josephine, and the unusual duo quickly became a circus sensation. Despite the harsh world of the circus, Priscilla was known for her kind and friendly personality. Audiences adored her, and she performed in sideshows and circuses for many years. People came from all over to see Priscilla the Monkey Girl, and she became one of the most famous sideshow performers of her time. After retiring in the 1970s, she chose a quiet life away from the spotlight. She passed away in 2001, leaving behind a legacy as one of the most beloved figures in circus history. The man who turned his head backward. Martin Lorello had a talent that shocked everyone. He could turn his head a full 180 degrees. Born in Germany in 1885, he had a rare spine condition that made this possible. His neck bent in a way that seemed almost unreal, making him a must-see performer in circuses and sideshows. In 1921, he moved to the US and became a star at famous venues like Ripley's Believe It or Not and the Ringling Brothers Circus. People couldn't believe their eyes as he twisted his head completely backward, performing tricks that seemed impossible. But Martin wasn't just a one-trick act. He also trained dogs to do gymnastics, adding more excitement to his show. However, when his head was turned, he couldn't breathe, though he could still drink and do other tasks. Despite the challenges, he performed for decades, amazing crowds with his unique ability. He continued entertaining until his passing in 1955 at age 70. His story remains one of the most incredible in sideshow history. The armless wonder who amazed the world. Frances O'Connor was born in 1892 without arms, but that didn't stop her from becoming a star. She amazed crowds by doing things most people needed hands for: eating, drinking, sewing, and even shooting a gun, all with her feet. Her incredible skills and determination made her one of the most famous circus performers of her time. At just 15, she joined the Ringling Brothers Circus, with her mother managing her career. She was known as the Living Venus de Milo, a title inspired by the famous armless statue. People couldn't believe their eyes when they saw Frances light and smoke a cigarette with her toes. Her confidence and grace made her stand out in the circus world, and she became a legend. After years of performing, she chose a quieter life and eventually retired. Frances passed away in 1982, but her legacy as one of the most unforgettable sideshow performers lives on. Sarah Hubold was born with Hallermann-Streiff syndrome, a rare condition that affects her bones, making her just under 5 feet tall and legally blind. But that didn't stop her from chasing her dreams. Before stepping into the circus world, she was a Paralympic swimmer in the 2000 Sydney Games, proving her incredible strength and determination. After her swimming career, she found her passion in circus and physical theater, mastering aerial acts, acrobatics, and hula hoop performances. Her breathtaking skills have amazed audiences worldwide. Beyond performing, Sarah has a strong voice for disability rights and making the arts more accessible. She proudly calls herself a natural-born freak, taking back the word and breaking old stereotypes about people with disabilities. Through her advocacy, she pushes for more inclusive spaces, proving that differences should be celebrated, not hidden. Her journey is a powerful reminder that challenges don't define us, our determination and courage do. The boy with two bodies. People couldn't believe their eyes when they saw Lalu Rampersad. The boy with two bodies. Born in India, he had a parasitic twin attached to his chest, arms, legs, and even a working reproductive system, but no head. This rare condition made him a sensation in sideshows during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Lalu traveled across Europe and the United States, performing with famous circuses like Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey. Though he was Muslim, promoters falsely advertised him as a cheerful Hindu to attract bigger crowds. Lalu's incredible but difficult journey came to a tragic end in 1905. While traveling to Mexico with the Norris and Rose Circus, he was killed in a train accident. His life, though extraordinary, was filled with exploitation as he was put on display for entertainment. Even today, his story is a reminder of how the search for uniqueness in show business often came at a great personal cost. The incredible life of Johnny Eck. Johnny Eck wasn't just any performer, he was a living legend. Born in Baltimore on August 29, 1911, Johnny had tiny, non-functional legs that he kept strapped to his body with a special harness. His twin brother, Robert, was fully formed, and together they created a show that amazed the world. In 1937, they performed a mind-blowing illusion with magician Raja Raboid. Robert appeared to be sawed in half, and at the perfect moment, Johnny emerged from a box, making it look like his lower body had been cut away. The trick was so real that some people in the audience fainted or ran out in terror. Johnny's career in show business started in 1923 when he joined a sideshow, always performing alongside Robert. He became famous as the Half Man, working with top acts like Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey, and Ripley's Believe It or Not. He even appeared in 3 Tarzan films as the character Goon Bird. Later in life, Johnny and Robert ran a penny arcade and a children's train ride in Baltimore. Outside of work, Johnny painted, wrote plays, and entertained local kids with his creativity. His life was a story of resilience and talent, proving that differences can be a source of strength. He passed away in 1991, leaving behind a legacy of wonder and inspiration. The Aztec twins. People were amazed when they saw Maximo and Bartol, 2 brothers from El Salvador, born in the late 19th century. They were small in size and had a rare condition, but that didn't stop them from becoming famous. Their promoters saw an opportunity and created an incredible story, claiming Maximo and Bartol were the last surviving members of an ancient Aztec tribe. To make it even more mysterious, they said the brothers had been discovered in a hidden temple deep in the jungles of Central America. The story spread like wildfire, and soon they were performing in freak shows, museums, and even royal courts. Dressed in elaborate costumes, Maximo and Bartol became living legends, traveling across Europe and the Americas. The world believed the tale of their ancient origins, and for years they remained at the center of public fascination. But behind the scenes, their true story was hidden, buried beneath the spectacle. They lived their lives as performers, embodying both the wonder and exploitation of human curiosity. Even after they passed away in the mid-20th century, their legacy remained, a reminder of how easily myths can shape reality. The man with 2 faces. Edward Mordrake's life was a nightmare. Born into an aristocratic family in the early 19th century, he was brilliant, musically gifted, and a talented pianist. But he carried a horrifying secret, an extra face on the back of his head. This second face was said to be both beautiful and sinister, with a mind of its own. While Edward cried in despair, the face would grin and whisper terrifying things to him. It tormented him day and night, says Dyer, driving him to madness. Unable to take it any longer, he ended his life at just 23. Before his death, he begged doctors to remove the cursed face before burying him. But was Edward Mordrake even real? His story has spread for years, but modern research suggests it might be pure myth. Some rare medical conditions can cause extra facial features, but no evidence proves Edward ever existed. Still, his eerie tale refuses to die. Whether fact or fiction, the legend of the man with 2 faces continues to haunt and fascinate people to this day. The Two-Headed Nightingale. Millie and Christine McCoy were no ordinary twins. Born on July 11, 1851, in North Carolina, They were conjoined at the lower spine and shared one pelvis. Their early life was filled with hardship. Born into slavery, they were sold for $1,000 to a showman who wanted to use them for public display. Over time, they were passed from owner to owner, even kidnapped and exhibited in private scientific shows where doctors studied their rare condition. For years, they were treated as nothing more than curiosities, displayed for money without control over their own lives. But their story took a turn. After the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863, they were finally free. Yet, instead of leaving, they stayed with the Smith family and transformed their act. No longer just a sideshow attraction, they became famous as the Two-Headed Nightingale for their incredible singing voices. Their performances in England and the US brought them fame and financial success. Despite their difficult past, they proved that talent and resilience could rise above exploitation. Not every show has a happy ending. These circus tragedies remind us that danger is always lurking behind the curtain. Stay curious, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.